We are officially in the finals for Atheist of the Year. We won Atheist of the Year in the social media category, which is a separate thing, but now we're up against the author category, the activist category, and one other. I believe it's down to myself, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Raif Badawi. Now, in this vote, I want to implore everybody to choose Raif Badawi. I came out here yesterday and shamelessly plugged myself and said, please vote for me for the social media category. But in all seriousness, for the broader category of just Atheist of the Year, he's a true hero. I'm a jackass who's doing the functional equivalent of barking at pine cones on the internet, whereas this guy was actually in harm's way, and he was making a case for secularism and rationality and liberalism in Saudi Arabia, where, socially speaking, there's none of that, and they don't even tolerate open dissent, and they don't tolerate people who have a differing opinion. I mean, we covered stories before on Saudi Arabia about how they outlawed liberal interpretations of Islam. So even the reformers from within the faith who are saying, hey, let's, be really modern and humanist in our approach while still being religious, they say, nope, we're not even going to allow that. We only allow ultra-conservative interpretations and a Salafi interpretation of Islam. They also, of course, say atheists are terrorists. Raif Badawi, for those of you who don't know the story, he's a Saudi Arabian activist, and he created the website Free Saudi Liberals. So he's a liberal in Saudi Arabia, and he was arrested in 2012 on a charge of insulting Islam. I mean, think about how incredible that is. If that was something that could get me locked up or anybody locked up in an American context, not only would I be in jail, I would have been given the death sentence 172 times over. I mean, I do a segment that's against Islam probably on a daily basis, a segment that's against Christianity on a daily basis, a segment that's against, Jewish extremism or the extremism of the Israeli government. I do segments on that often. The idea that open criticism of, whether it's a state, a government, or a religious doctrine or belief system, the idea that that gets you in trouble to the point where they lock you in a cage or potentially worse, that's something that's just fundamentally anti-freedom. It's against civil liberties, it's against human rights, and it's one thing for me to do it in a New York context where in this realm there's little to no consequences, but for him to do it in Saudi Arabia, that really takes balls. And I'd love to sit here and say to you guys, no, I would be doing it as well if I was in Saudi Arabia, but I'd be lying if I said that. I don't know. If I was in that context, would I be that brave? Again, I want to say yeah, but I don't know if that's true. Perhaps if you put me in that context, I'd, understandably and justifiably be a closeted atheist and secularist because I would fear for my own safety. This is somebody who really put their ass on the line and they're suffering the consequences, and this is a principled stand that's, being punished. So he was convicted in 2013 and sentenced to 7 years in prison and 600 lashes. In 2014, his sentence was increased. As the world was saying, decrease it, let him out, Saudi Arabia increased it to 10 years in prison and 1,000 lashes. I think so far he's gotten 20 lashes or 50 lashes. And then they had to call it off or postpone it, and they kept postponing it because he was in such bad health, and the lashes did so much damage that doctors said if you whip him again, he's just going to die from the lashes. So this is an amazing price to pay, and this is somebody who really is a true hero who's standing up for liberalism and freedom and civil rights in the context of a society that says we're not even going to tolerate you discussing it, never mind tolerating you implementing it or changing the structure of government and the system to make it better. So again, this is a true hero. And I also, while I'm at it here, I want to give a mention to all of the Bangladeshi bloggers who are secular bloggers, and some of them were atheists, some of them were just secular, but a number of them were hacked to death in 2015. So in all seriousness, it feels wrong to even consider giving, somebody like myself or Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris some kind of an award for being a brave atheist, when in our context, it's so much easier to just say, Like, oh yeah, we're against irrational dogmatic mythology and stupid shit like that. If people are doing it in a society where there's many more fundamentalists and the structure of government is wholly set against them. Now, in Bangladesh, it's a little different. It's officially a secular state, but there's an increasing Islamist movement, and they're very dangerous, clearly. To do it in that context is so much harder, and there's no comparison between what I do or what, and not to put down Richard or Sam, but what they do and what these guys do. You know, this is, it takes an extra level of bravery to do what they do. So, Avijit Roy, hacked to death by Islamists in Bangladesh, secular blogger, Oyaseeker Rahman, Ananta Bijoy Das, Niloy Neal, and Faisal Dipan. These are all people who were secular bloggers who were macheted to death in Bangladesh, some of them in broad daylight in the middle of the street in 2015. And these are the real heroes because they're the ones who are really swimming against the tide. I mean, look, we're still, a minority in the U.S. and in the West, largely speaking, but our numbers are growing, and it's much safer for us to criticize it here. 20% of the U.S. identifies as non-religious or unaffiliated. They're in the nuns category, so they're not part of an organized religion. So it's a much more open environment, even though we're still a minority and even though there's still discrimination. This is true heroism. So I want everybody who voted for me in the last round, and I'm honored that I'm social media atheist of the year, but vote for Raif Badawi in the finals here for just atheist man of the year, because he deserves it way more than I'll ever deserve it. And, it takes a real special person to do what he did and suffer these consequences. And not enough people are speaking up on behalf of him. We all need to speak up on behalf of him and let people know this isn't a debatable issue. This isn't like, hey, there's two sides of it. No, there's not two sides of it. One side are the grotesque, disgusting oppressors who take away rights, and the other side is somebody who's using freedom of speech and freedom of expression to fight for liberal values and people's rights and human rights. So, it's not something that we should even be nuanced about, because this is an area where nuance is not merited. Would you be nuanced in saying, hey, was Martin Luther King right or the KKK? No, you say Martin Luther King is right. End of conversation. Same thing here with Raif Badawi versus the Saudi government. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And I just want to say one more time here, Godless Spell Checker, who came in second in the Social Media of the Year award, he would have won if I didn't do a YouTube segment saying, hey guys, could you please vote for me? Because he has a much bigger Twitter following and he has a loyal fan base as well. And I just want to let everybody know, if I didn't do the segment, he would have won. I had 47% in the polls before I did the segment, and you guys flooded it and made me win. So check out his podcast if you haven't. I've heard fantastic things. And thanks again for voting me Social Media Atheist of the Year. But for Atheist of the Year, Atheist Man of the Year, let's all vote for Raif Badawi.